G'day and welcome to the Bernie Gaynor Show. It is great to have your company again. The US election is now just 17 days away. At stake is the future of the world's most powerful nation. Will America be able to stand up to an increasingly powerful China? Will its economy rebound after the coronavirus lockdowns? And can America do either of those things while violent left-wing militias wreak havoc on its cities? Those are important questions. They are so important that they are not just being asked in the United States. People all over the world are asking them. So you'd think that Joe Biden, who is leading the polls, will be focused on those issues. After all, if he wins, he'll need to deal with them. But Joe Biden is focused on other things, more important things. So, what are those other things? Well, first up, it's not entirely clear.
You may recall, I'm the guy who said, I was raised by a man who, I remember I was being dropped off. My dad was a high school educated, well-read man who was a really decent guy. And I was being dropped off to get an application in the center of our city, Wilmington, Delaware, the corporate capital of the world at the time. And these two men, I'm getting out to get an application to be a lifeguard in the African-American community because there was a big swimming pool complex.
Wow. The man you just watched may soon be leading the most powerful nation on earth. And it's pretty clear that no one, not even Joe himself, really has any idea what he's doing. That's concerning. It doesn't just concern conservatives. It concerns everyone. If you have time, go back and watch that 30-second clip again. But this time, look at the face of the woman who asked the question. It's priceless. And she's a Joe Biden voter. You'll get a good laugh. So, what question was Joe Biden answering? Well, it was this one.
I'm the proud mom of two girls, 8 and 10. My youngest daughter is transgender. The Trump administration has attacked the rights of transgender people, banning them from military service, weakening non-discrimination protections, and even removing the word transgender from some government websites. How will you, as president, reverse this dangerous and discriminatory agenda and ensure that the lives and rights of LGBTQ people are protected under US law?
The old transgender chestnut. China's on the horizon. Everything is shut down, there's a pandemic, and loonies are burning down US cities. But what will Joe Biden do for men who think that they are women? Well, Joe will change the law for them. That's what.
I will flat out just change the law, eliminate those executive orders.
Joe might be losing it, that's why he rambles on, but when it comes to changing the law for people who don't even know who they are, Joe Biden is on the ball, even when they're only 8 years old. In some ways, that clip says a lot more about America, in fact, the entire Western world, than just about what Joe Biden said. When you think about it, it is more than a little weird that that question was even asked, given all the real problems that the world is facing. But that question was chosen out of all the hundreds of possible questions that could be put to Joe Biden. It was then played live on television, and the man who might be the next US president was asked about transgenderism, and then media outlets all over the world ran stories on it. All of that is really quite incredible. It says a lot about our society, and none of it is good, even without getting into the fact that Joe Biden does believe that a man can be a woman. Just for the record, because we like to fight fake news here at The Good Source, a man cannot be a woman. If you think otherwise, you should really get some help. Over the past few days, a major story has broken in the US. The New York Post last week published emails, purportedly from the computer of Joe Biden's son Hunter, that show that in 2015, Hunter introduced his father Joe Biden, then the US vice president, to a top executive at Ukrainian energy firm Burisma. Why is that interesting? Well, because Hunter was reportedly paid $50,000 a month by Burisma, even though he had no experience in energy or the Ukraine. Instead, it is claimed that he had cash thrown at him for his connections, including with his father. And then, less than a year after this reported meeting, Joe Biden managed to pressure Ukrainian authorities into sacking a prosecutor. This prosecutor says he was investigating Burisma, where Hunter Biden was being paid a fortune for corruption. So the scandal, unproven as yet, is that Hunter Biden has been profiting off his connection with his father, and that his father used his position to protect his son's financial interests and a foreign company from a corruption investigation. That Joe Biden got someone fired by withholding a $1 billion loan from Ukraine is not a secret. He's boasted about it himself.
And I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Now, you'd think that this story would be one that was worth pursuing. The last thing America needs is a president who pressures foreign nations to shut down corruption investigations to enrich his own family. But that is the allegation being thrown around. In fact, it has been thrown around for some time, but just last week it appeared that the first hard evidence proving it was unearthed. So what happened? Well, most of the media went to work to bury the story. The New York Times and CNN did not touch it, and the social media giants, Facebook and Twitter, locked down accounts that posted the New York Post article, which, by the way, also published photos from the laptop showing Hunter Biden smoking what appeared to be a crack pipe. They banned the article, perhaps the biggest article during this election campaign, just 3 weeks from election day. They did it even though no one has proven the article to be false. This is called censorship, and it is an even bigger issue than the story itself. Twitter went so far as to shut down the Trump campaign Twitter account. Just think about that for a second. The social media giants are doing everything they can to ensure that Americans cannot hear from the President of the United States. It is outrageous. Big tech, Facebook and Twitter did this for one reason. They are politically corrupt and are desperate to see Joe Biden win the election. They know that Joe Biden will not do anything to upset their very lucrative apple cart. This is how Tucker Carlson of Fox News characterized this situation.
A major American newspaper published a story, apparently an entirely accurate story, about a presidential candidate. The tech monopolies that control American media feared this story might hurt that candidate, whom they favor. So 3 weeks before a national election, they shut the whole thing down. They prevented the public from reading the news. They didn't apologize for doing this. They didn't bother to make up reasonable sounding justifications for it. They just did it, exactly as the Chinese government does. These are monopolies. They have all the power. You have none. They don't have to care what you think, and they don't. This was mass censorship on a scale that America has never experienced, not in 245 years. And it's a threat to all of us. Democracies only function when there is a free exchange of information between citizens. We no longer have that. This is a dark moment.
If Trump does win the election, and I think he will, one of the first things he needs to do is sort out big tech. Big tech has made trillions of our private information, and now they control the flow of all information, even to the point where they can pull stories that threaten their favourite political candidate and silence a sitting American president. This is dangerous, it is undemocratic, and it must be stopped. Well, Joe Biden kept being asked, and Joe Biden kept refusing to answer. The question, of course, is whether he will pack the US Supreme Court with partisan Democratic judges. Packing courts with political puppets is a surefire way to kill any justice system. It's such a bad idea that in any normal election year, both candidates would have killed off the idea a long time ago. But not this year. Joe Biden has kept the question burning for weeks. And then on Friday, he let the cat out of the bag. Joe Biden will kill the US justice system. Watch this.
If they vote on it before the election, you are open to expanding the court?
I'm open to considering what happens from that point on.
By that point on, Joe Biden is referring to the current process underway, an entirely constitutional process to fill the vacancy left on the Supreme Court by the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. President Trump has nominated Amy Coney Barrett to fill that spot, as he is required to do by the US Constitution, and the Senate is considering that nomination as they also are required to do under the US Constitution. None of this is extraordinary. It is how the system is supposed to work. Joe Biden and the Democrats are just upset that they might not get their choice. And that's because the American people voted Donald Trump and the Republicans into positions to fill this spot on the US Supreme Court. So what Joe Biden is really doing is threatening to tear down the US justice system unless the Republicans stop following the Constitution. It's as simple as that. And given Biden's latest comments, it is no longer a secret either. The only question, if he's elected, is how long it will take before his new justice system starts lining its political opponents up against the wall. Speaking of violence, it continues in America. This police vehicle was set alight in Seattle last week while a police officer was inside it. Given the violence unleashed against the police and promoted by radical left-wing groups like Black Lives Matter and Antifa, it should come as no surprise that police officers are leaving their jobs in droves. After all, who would want to work in a dangerous job where the media and much of the political class support organisations that incite people to kill you? Because that is what is happening. Most police officers join up to protect their community. They are brave people, but at the end of the day, they still want to go home and tuck their sons and daughters into bed. That is becoming more difficult thanks to the Democratic Party's militias. In the city of Seattle, where that vehicle I just showed you was burnt, approximately 10% of the police force have resigned this year. 118 police officers have left the Seattle police force, almost one-third of them just last month, according to Jason Rance, a local reporter. Many of the approximately 1,200 who have remained are using accrued sick leave as they look for new jobs too. It means that Seattle's police force has decreased to levels last seen in 1990, when Seattle was 40% smaller than it is today. As a result, emergency calls may not be answered. This is not such a good thing, considering Seattle has seen a 60% increase in murder this year. 60%. To make matters worse, the council, acting on calls to defund the police, has decided to sack another 70 officers. Seattle is one place that soon no one will want to call home. The Democrat militias will make sure of that. And Democrat militias they are. Project Veritas has uncovered the violent views and pro-Antifa support of key Democrats in the state of Colorado. Watch this.
2020 is a political revolution. I am going to do everything morally acceptable to win. I will lie, I will cheat, I will steal, because that's morally acceptable in this political environment.
This is Chris Jacks from Our Revolution, a radical left 501c4 organization bent on creating a, quote, political revolution in the United States. Jacks represents the Democratic Party here in Colorado. And Jacks says a Biden administration will be used to advance his political objectives, or else there will be violence.
It's going to take a strategic hit against the 0.1% that's in charge, because that's who it is. It's killing random Nazis in the street, random bootlickers. So you want to do some Versailles shit, you want to do some Antifa shit, you really want to change this country that way with violence? There's only one way to do it. You got to get people that are close to billionaires and start just random billionaires start turning them dead. I mean, Bezos at the top of the list. I do think there needs to be a militant group, and I love Antifa for that reason. I love that there's you always have to have somebody that's willing to hold up the flag and say, no, this is the line in the sand, and we're the ones holding that line. But they ain't stabbing motherfuckers like they used to. They don't have to, though, because they used to stab. See?
Yeah.
And that's all we got to say. No. Guillotines. Motherfucker, that's all you got to say.
Guillotines, the man says. That's all you got to say, and you'll get your way. It is a threat. That video should send chills down your spine. It should send a chill down the spine of everyone. notice his direct threat to Jeff Bezos. Bezos is a Democrat. He just happens to be uber rich. But when people like the man in this video get their way, being a rich Democrat will not save you. It will be why you die. When the revolution comes, it always eats its own. So, who was this man? Well, his name is Christopher Jacks, and he is more than just a mere member of the Democratic Party. He and his mates have a growing influence in its operations in Colorado.
So, Bernie Sanders came along and said no more of that. Said get involved, go down to your Democratic Party, become a member, get involved. So I did. Enough is enough. And right now, we're sitting here 2 years after we founded Our Revolution Weld County. I'm not just the chair of that organization, I'm also a member of the Weld County Democratic Party Executive Committee. I'm also a member of the Colorado Democratic Party's Congressional District 4 Committee. I'm also part of the Colorado Democratic Party Executive Committee, Central Committee. I'm part of dozens and dozens of other committees, and I'm not just talking about me, because this isn't about me. This is about us. And I got dozens of my friends that went along with me. We now have a comfortable majority on the Weld County Democratic Party. 12 of our 14 members that go to state Democratic Party for this Colorado are Our Revolution members.
Bernie Sanders said get involved, and so the left-wing militias did. They joined up the Democratic Party, and the way things are going, it won't be long before they are running it. We should all expect increased violence in the US over the coming weeks. These people openly admit that they will lie, cheat, and steal. These people are the ones who will not accept the election result, and when it doesn't go their way, things will get really nasty. Throughout this year, we have been told by politicians that they only follow the science and that lockdowns are necessary to prevent COVID-19. Dance at a wedding, sit on a park bench, buy a kebab, and coronavirus might happen. But it can't happen. Someone might die, or end up in hospital, or just get a cough, or most likely not even know that they have it. And we cannot afford that. So every Australian has had their freedom taken away. Some more than others, but all of us have suffered. Hardly anyone has got sick. More people under the age of 50 have died from shark attacks than COVID-19 this year. That is a fact. Victorians in particular have suffered. They have endured the longest lockdown in the world. Melburnians were confined to their home for 23 hours a day. Dan Andrews said it was what the experts said needed to be done. Then his own experts said, actually, no, didn't need to be done. Then Dan Andrews said it was all about making the job easier for the police. And then the police said that actually, no, they didn't ask for the lockdowns either. And now it turns out that the World Health Organization does not support lockdowns either. Watch this.
We in the World Health Organization do not advocate lockdowns as a primary means of control of this virus. The only time we believe a lockdown is justified is to buy you time to reorganize, regroup, rebalance your resources, protect your health workers who are exhausted. But by and large, we'd rather not do it. Just look at what's happened to the tourism industry, for example, in the Caribbean or in the Pacific, because people aren't taking their holidays. Look what's happened to smallholder farmers all over the world because their markets have got dented. Look what's happening to poverty levels. It seems that we may well have a doubling of world poverty by next year. We may well have at least a doubling of child malnutrition because children are not getting meals at school and their parents in poor families are not able to afford it. This is a terrible, ghastly global catastrophe, actually. And so we really do appeal to all world leaders. Stop using lockdown as your primary control method. Develop better systems for doing it. Work together and learn from each other. But remember, lockdowns just have one consequence that you must never, ever belittle, and that is making poor people an awful lot poorer.
Making poor people an awful lot poorer. That's what lockdowns do. There was no justification for Dan Andrews' draconian dictatorship. His position is untenable, especially as it is now becoming known that his answers to the inquiry in Victoria are simply not credible or true. He needs to go, and I can't wait for the class actions that come his way. He should pay personally for what he has done to his state. Most people would have thought that Dan Andrews would be booted before the New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian, but that may not be the case. Gladys Berejiklian is in the headlines this week because she had a close personal relationship with Daryl Maguire, an MP who it is alleged used his position of power and his relationship with the Premier for financial gain. This is how this very embarrassing story unfolded.
The New South Wales Premier has told a corruption inquiry she had a close personal relationship with former Wagga Wagga MP Daryl Maguire. The Independent Commission Against Corruption is investigating whether Mr Maguire used his position for personal gain. Premier Gladys Berejiklian has been giving evidence to the inquiry this morning.
Ms Berejiklian, have you ever been in a close personal relationship with Mr Maguire?
Yeah, I would like to say at the outset that Mr Maguire was a colleague of 15 years. He was someone that I trusted. He was a trusted colleague.
Ms Berejiklian, you should answer the question.
I am answering the question,
You should answer it directly.
Certainly, and
I'll give you an opportunity.
Yes or no answer.
Yeah, sure, and that developed into a close personal relationship. Yeah.
So is it right that at least as at the 13th of July 2018, you were in a close personal relationship with Mr Maguire?
Correct.
Is it right to say that you were in a close personal relationship with Mr Maguire from at least about the time of the 2015 election?
Or slightly after, thereabouts.
Slightly after?
Or thereabouts.
Is it right to say
to the best of my recollection, yeah.
Is it right to say that at least before that period of time you at least had a personal attachment to Mr Maguire, even if at that point in time you weren't in a close personal relationship?
Yeah.
Are you still in a close personal relationship with Mr Maguire? And I'm sorry to have to ask this, but approximately when did you cease to be in a close personal relationship with Mr Maguire?
Well, obviously, a few months ago when I was asked to support this inquiry, it became apparent to me that I should have absolutely no contact anymore with that individual, and I ceased all contact. But I also do want to state, Mr Robertson, that post me asking him to resign from the Parliament, and he resigned from the Parliament, he was someone who was in a very bad state. After having known him for 15 years, I felt that I should check on his welfare, and therefore, for that reason, I maintained that association.
Now, these revelations shocked everybody, including Gladys Berejiklian's closest colleagues, who simply had no idea that she was sleeping with Daryl Maguire. Now, I have no idea whether Gladys Berejiklian did the wrong thing in relation to corruption. I also have no idea whether Daryl Maguire did the wrong thing either, but it certainly does not look good for either of them. But I do know this. There is an old saying that when it comes to politics, you should either follow the money or find out who is sleeping with who. Generally, those trails tend to end up in the same place. If you are sleeping with someone, you will treat them differently than you treat other people. Secret sexual relationships always open the door to bad behaviour. The very fact that they are secret is wrong in itself. The institution of marriage has ensured that sexual relationships are open and understood. One of the problems with the attack on marriage is that secret relationships have now come to be expected, especially in politics, and transparency in this area is now avoided altogether. It should not be this way. The most reliable way to ensure that dodgy political deals or corruption is avoided is to be open and transparent about your intimate relationship. And yes, you only need one of them. In fact, this is the only way of ensuring that vested personal interests do not cloud political decisions. Gladys Berejiklian failed not just herself, but the people of New South Wales when she decided to embark on this sneaky affair. She should resign. She has shown a complete lack of integrity. And for all the people out there claiming that we have no right to know who she is sleeping with, I say, get on your bikes. We should know exactly who our political leaders are sleeping with, and if it's not their spouse, then they should no longer be in politics at all. The Dutch are moving to allow parents to decide if they would like to put their children to sleep. That's the polite way of saying killing them. Not content with just bumping off the elderly who no one wants to care for anymore, the Dutch health minister is drafting laws that will allow children under the age of 12 to be euthanised. Normally, health ministers are in charge of helping their citizens stay fit and healthy, but not in the Netherlands it seems. 7,000 people kill themselves via euthanasia in the Netherlands each year. By the way, That's more than 8 times the number of people in Australia who died with COVID this year, even though we have a larger population than the Netherlands. That's interesting. Euthanasia, it seems, is far more deadly than coronavirus. Oh well, at least it's legal. And soon, who knows how many children will join those 7,000 in the Netherlands each year. Meanwhile, New Zealand went to the polls to vote on euthanasia and to legalise cannabis yesterday. As this episode was filmed before the election, I'm not sure what the results are, but I can confidently predict that any nation that legalises drugs and death won't last in any civilised form. If the Kiwis do vote to end it all, they will have an excuse though. After all, they've been living under Jacinda Ardern for longer than most could possibly bear. It's time to wrap up this week's episode, but not before we finish with our weekly recognition of lunacy. This week's Goose of the Week runner-up and the winner both goes to the ABC. Well done, guys. It's the first time any individual or organisation has been able to scoop up both of these awards in a single week. The ABC has managed this amazing feat because it takes crazy to extreme levels. Michael Smith broke a story on Friday that the ABC was offering prizes to staff members if they could reach diversity goals. Not diversity of thought goals, gender diversity goals. Programs should aim to be 50-50 male and female across the board. Apparently, according to the ABC, this will make for better programs that are more relevant to its audience. I'm not sure what the prizes are, but I'm sure future guests on the ABC will be pleased to know now that they've been chosen because of their gender rather than their brains. And ABC Brisbane obviously should not get a single prize. After all, with one noticeable exception of Steve Austin, all of their single-hosted daytime shows are filled with women, or uniformly leaning to the left. It's not just crazy, it's bloody boring too. The ABC's gender diversity push gets the runner-up prize. And the winning prize goes to ABC cameraman Lincoln Rothel for sending out an email last week stating that he would have voted for COVID for a Nobel Prize if it killed Cardinal Pell. Now that's a pretty stupid thing to say, but it is not as stupid as accidentally sending it out across an entire ABC newsroom. And that's what Rothel did. At least he has shown us what the ABC really does think of Cardinal Pell and the culture of this organisation, and we can thank him for that. So give Lincoln Rothel and the ABC a round of applause. They're this week's Geese of the Week. The Queensland election is coming up on the 31st of October, and Good Source News will be covering it live in this studio, which we've been slowly putting together with your support. If you can, there's still a lot of work to be done, so please donate at the Good Source website. But on the 31st of October, in this studio, we'll be crossing to important seats, bringing you breaking news, and having a bit of a laugh as well. Stay tuned.
The Bernard Gaynor Show is a production of The Good Source, hosted by Bernard Gaynor. To watch, listen to, or read more content without the SJW PC fact filter, visit goodsource.news. Good, SAUCE.news. Become a Good Source supporter for exclusive access to live and unedited interview recordings, including the conversations before and after the show.